Yeah, this is the Product Analytics PMUX Weekly Sync for August 23rd, 2023. We have one agenda item today discussing a demo of the proposed pivot on the dashboard MVC. Jan, do you want to kick us off and share your screen to talk through this?
Sure, let
Thanks.
me share my screen. Right, can you all see?
You're in the agenda.
Great.
Looks good.
Cool. Let me start off with the issue that is the context for this agenda item. That is the new custom dashboard flow, specifically the dashboard designer MVC. So this is the first iteration that we want to launch to customers. It is currently being tested by some internal users that have this feature flag enabled. And with this MVC, we have a new design. The design looks pretty slick. But while implementing this, we ran into some practicality issues in terms of just how the grid works and call to actions being shifted around. And also some of the edit experience is a bit of a, has a question mark on it. For example, I don't think the designs include anything that's tells us how this title should actually be edited or what the edit state looks like. Rob and I played around with some ideas in terms of having it live editable as HTML content. There's an attribute you can put on for that, or switching it to an input box. And eventually, while talking through this, we just ideated and took a bias for action, since we're lacking a UX designer or a dedicated UX designer for our team, to try and come up with an approach that solves the issues that we were talking about and encountered. And yeah, I've gone into detail here on the comments. I'm sure everyone on this call has already seen it. But basically what we saw is that we can maybe do a iteration between what we have now and our vision, and use some of the existing pajamas components and use some of our existing forms in settings and the new MR and issue screen as a inspiration to come up with something practical that works for now and is good enough for our users for first release. And basically what we came up with was this design that I can demo here. So this is the create your dashboard screen. We took the dashboard title edit from, this is how it looks when you create a new MR or issue, which I can just quickly show here. As you can see, it has a similar look and feel to it. You have your page title describing the action that you're taking, and then you have your fields that you need to input so that you can create an issue. Similar, if I don't have a title, I can still call this primary field, but it will say, hey, you need to go fix this. And we're looking to potentially deliver this as a similar first experience. So what I also have here is, as you can see, you get error. This could probably be on that form group instead of jumping up, but the idea is there. We added an empty state here to just show hey, to basically guide first-time users into, there's two things you need to do. One is title, the second is add a visualization. And once you did that, we have some progressive disclosure in terms of only showing the filter then, so that we limit the amount of control that users initially see. Because this is only really applicable for, I feel users that are a bit more advanced and kind of know that they're going to want to filter or preview how their data is going to look. I think first-time users are probably going to ignore that filter, but it's still useful to show. Similarly, our edit experience, and that's the other part that this design kind of neglected a bit, is that we currently have an edit experience. It's not just new dashboards, it's also an edit experience that we need to support. And that whole stepped flow doesn't fit well in with the edit experience. So what we have here is pretty much more or less the same. We just don't have that empty state. That might come back in some form when we add the ability to remove dashboard or panels from the dashboards, because you'll maybe end up with something that has no, like, yeah, like users may want to start from scratch and remove all panels. That does bring up the interesting question about whether we should let users save an empty dashboard. My immediate gut feeling is yes. Like, I don't know what they're going to use it for, but we probably don't want to limit their action without good reason. And then I'll stop first there for any questions, because like from here I can talk about like a potential second iteration. But first I want to stop here for any questions and feedback about like specifically, James, what you think, whether we should like take a bias for action and go ahead with this, or
I
whether
think we
we should.
should. I think bias for action going ahead. A couple of little nitpicks. One, yeah, move the error into the right below the title so it's on par or the same experience. The other question I have is about the filter. So if we're rendering data and showing the filter, it's helpful. But if I'm editing a dashboard and I change that filter, my first instinct is that that's now the default filter on the dashboard. And I don't think that that's true.
I see, that is a good point. Like, I think the filter is kind of necessary here because it gives you that same what you see, what you get experience in terms of like you can already play around with your visualizations that you've added and gives you a good idea of what it's actually going to look like. At the same time, you raise a good point in that users may think that this is like a static element. I'm
I think we
happy
can solve
to.
for that in the tooltip that just says something that indicates in this. I don't know if we can differentiate
Yes, a
between the
tooltip,
tooltips
extra
or
tooltip.
something like the filter is not a savable thing. That is just there
Yeah,
for the data exploration part of it. But I wouldn't get hung up on that. I like this. I think this is looking good. It's consistent with the edit experience as far as the list of things are there. The title is there. Saving the dashboard. Yeah, I don't know about letting users save an empty dashboard, but I think that, again, that shouldn't hold us up. I appreciate the bias to action. I think that this is a good path forward for the MPC.
okay, great. Yeah, as long as you're happy with this and you think that this is going to solve most of our customer requirements for the MVC, then I'm happy to also go ahead. Rob, do you have any thoughts?
We've got a separate issue to discuss the visualizations right-hand sidebar.
Yes.
Based upon Kevin's previous work, and trying to iterate towards that as well, which me and John discussed when we sat down and spoke about the whole MVC structure. There's wanted to ask, there's conversations going on in this issue with, is it Justin Mendel?
Yeah, probably.
Is that in relation to something we're going to be working on based off these designs, or is that in as a secondary augmentation, like a next iteration? John?
That is probably a next iteration. So what Justin and I have been discussing, when James has also been involved in this discussion, is about the call to action to open up the available visualization side drawer. So we have these other parallel issue to this dashboard designer MVC, which is, like you said, to implement our new UX designs, which migrates the existing this like temporary sidebar fixed thing that we have here, which looks pretty ugly, into a side drawer component. The issue with the side drawer component is you need a call to action to actually open it. And the good news is we now have two options, which I think are viable. And I've asked Justin for his feedback in terms of like which he prefers. Like we can either have this elongated button / pseudo panel at the top. This solves the thing of we have a panel that moves around, and it also breaks the what you see, what you get like experience in terms of like having a panel that's sticky to the top left. Because this is small enough where I think like if we remove it, users aren't going to be like, oh, this isn't what I set up in the edit experience. Similarly, we could make it in line with the filter and add it to the right-hand side here. I think both works. I think it's also something we can iterate on. But so far, I've pinged Justin for his feedback. depending on what he says, I think we can go either direction. We could also do one and then implement the other. But this is for a follow-up. So I think by the sounds of it, from what we just discussed, like we're unblocked to carry on with this first iteration of design, which I'm like demoing here.
Mhm.
And all we need to do in terms of like feedback is just update the error experience in terms of highlighting the field that users need to input.
When the dashboard is empty, we have the call to action to add a visualization. Is there an indicator in that sidebar? Yeah, it says add visualizations and it lists them.
I think in the next iteration, if we have got that call to action somewhere, then we can add a call to action to that empty state like we normally would. So that way users can just click the button and it will open that side drawer.
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking the list, is it intuitive for a user to click one of those to add it or to click and drag it in?
Yeah, see, we discussed this in the call because it's very not, it looks like plain text or a link. It doesn't look like something actionable in the same way like the current design Jan's showing off with the multi-select checkbox. That looks actionable. Like I click it, I do something. So we did discuss this and ways and things that we might be able to do to make it more obvious visually that you want to do something with this.
Since we're already talking about an iteration out of that view into something we know is more actionable, I don't think we need to spend a lot of cycles trying to make this iteration of it more actionable. So I think we can move on. And if we get user feedback, hey, I didn't realize that that was a thing I could drag over. I clicked create visualization, and then I recreated something that was already there. We know that this iteration should solve for that, and we can more quickly move to it. So not too worried about it. It'll be something for us to look at in feedback. Or kind of the hypothesis would be this version tells the user that they should or how to add something, whereas the other one didn't.
Yeah, totally agree.
Cool. Yeah,
All right.
otherwise I think this is looking good. Great work, guys.
Great. Thanks for your quick feedback.
Great work, yeah.
And well, thanks for everyone to like willingness and openness to just collaborate and like quickly iterate on this. Yeah, I think it's a great display of GitLab values in terms of iteration, bias for action, short toes, everything. So well done, team.
Yeah.
Right, I'm gonna stop sharing.
I did want to say one little thing about the two designs you showed. Both are lovely. And in fact, I'm kind of leaning to the first one just because it looks a bit more snazzy. But the one thing I did want to say is relating to James's previous point about the filter looking almost like a preset. When you do add that button in between, it makes it even makes it look even more like it's a preset value from a, because it's right next to the title, which is a preset, and it's looking in a similar vein visually, in a similar vein. So yeah, that's the only thing I'd say regarding that, is we may want to make it even, as James said, clearer that this is for just the current iteration that you're looking at. It's not being saved somehow. Don't know how.
Yeah, I think the end vision will definitely solve or help with that user experience, because I think the end vision is to have no filters and that you add filters to this, kind of as like a tokenized search, that you have a button here that says add filter. That in itself could actually also be confusing, because now it could be seen as like, oh, you're adding a static filter and like you won't be able to edit it again. But definitely, yeah, some copy or something. I'm also fine with hiding it for the first iteration that we take to our customers. Maybe we can get some feedback from our internal users once we get this live, like out there on like GitLab.com. And we can just like propose that question and say like, does this make sense to you?
I would be open to hiding it. Yeah. For
The
create
experience
dashboards,
today-
you're only going to have immediate data anyway, because we have no way of importing. And the only place that might be a problem is edit dashboard if you haven't received data in a while, in the last 7 days. So, which is unlikely, at least for now.
Yeah, that seems fine. Of leave it or hide it. I'm good either way. And we'll get some feedback from users. Thinking about, at least for our internal product manager persona and developer persona, the tool that they're used to is one of the tools they're used to could be Sisense. It behaves the exact same way where you can change the filter that's on the top as far as dates and things go. And it saves it, but it's not in the edit experience. It's more a live edit of I'm changing the panels on the dashboard, or I'm changing, adding a new panel to a dashboard. I can change the filter there, and that persists, but that persists whether you're editing a dashboard or not. So it's not something that you save per se. So it kind of mirrors that experience. So it shouldn't be like, it's not totally foreign or totally unknown to what a user might be used to.
Cool. So by the sounds of it, it seems like let's hide it for the first iteration. It's going to be a really small change to hide this. So I'll include that in the MVC implementation plan.
Cool.
Awesome. In that case, I think we're done with this agenda item, so I'll stop sharing.
And I think we're done with the agenda then as well. Any other UX or implementation questions we can go through while we're all here synchronously?
I guess I thing I feel like I want to like voice, make sure we're all in agreement, is obviously we are currently looking to fill the design position within our team. So as far as I'm aware, and how I've been this, me and Jan have gone back to just covering the design position. We're not looking to create whole new MVC designs or create entire new pages. It's just about taking what we've already got and just iterating towards where we want to be in the smallest possible steps, rather than like doing big full-blown vision stuff like we were doing originally.
Yes. Small baby steps iteration. The only thing where I might ask for you to do some design, if we get that far without a designer, is going to be that new usage quota page. It is modeled 100% after the existing pipelines usage quota page. And that's what I hacked together a wireframe based on. So there's not a lot of design work there. It's just reusing existing components and plugging in our data versus pipeline data.
Well, that sounds like we can just first iteration duplicate pretty much what they've got, just change the fields to match ours, and then we can, based off usability analysis, like seeing what users say about it in a feedback issue, we can adjust in small steps again.
Yeah, I think that we'll have a designer by then anyway, but that's the only new page. Running through issues in my head. That's the only new page I can think of that we'll create that's going to need, all new design or new implementation. Otherwise, we're working on existing pages, iterating. This is the big one. And we're going to wait for new designer to be in place before we start working on a new vision for visualization designer.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. I'm fine with visualization designer. It works.
I mean, thank God we're not the ones having to do the design. No.
Yeah. There's going to be some research on that. We're going to go do some user studies, I think. Excellent. Well, I think that we are at the end of the agenda then, gents. Cool. Thanks for the time this morning. I appreciate it. I'll get this uploaded unfiltered.
Thank you.
Great,
and
thanks.
thank you for running it, Jan, as well, going through that discussion. I appreciate it.
Cool.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Yeah.